Welcome to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast with your hosts, Mike Randle and Gus Kearns.
Welcome and listeners to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, where we're always talking everything college hoops. Welcome aboard. We're so glad that you chose to spend some time with us. You could have been anywhere else on the dial, but you chose to be with us, Mike and Gus, and we appreciate that. So we have an NBA draft coming up. We have a little NBA finals and playoffs to discuss. And, Mike, we also have a couple of other coaching moves to discuss with the listeners. It's kind of nice to be back behind the mic. Mike, how's everything going?
It is a pleasure and an honor, my friend, to be back with you again. Little vacation there for a short period of time. I did a lot of stuff with fantasy football. I was producing Draft Kit, okay? The Roto Underworld Player Profiler World Famous Draft Kit. There's my shameless plug. A lot of different stuff going on, Gus, but I kept tracking it. I got ripped by Mike Gribanoff on your fantastic interview. Okay?
That's right. Yeah.
Where am I, Mike? I'm right here in front of the microphone, big guy, and I got a lot to say.
All right. So please, if you are a fantasy football head on the ancillary part, along with your college basketball consumption, go ahead and hit up Mike's stuff up. Please follow him on Twitter at Randle Rant. Don't forget to give the podcast a follow at SES Podcast on Twitter. We'll be a little bit more active now that we're back in the fold. And, if you like what you're listening to, please don't be afraid to give the podcast a nice review on iTunes or your podcast consumption vehicle of choice. Kindness is always cool, as we like to say. Mike, let's just run down a little bit quickly on the NBA playoffs, since we are both basketball heads. The Warriors continue to find new ways to dominate the West, but they fell a little short against the Raptors. Listen, there's a couple of things that we need to pay attention to here. I think, number one, Don Nelson must be pretty proud of the way that, Draymond and Kawhi are playing like lead guards in the forward position. The Raptors are now world champs and now look a little bit smarter than the rest of the franchises in the NBA, including one of the smartest franchises, the Spurs. Mike, I got a couple things for you here. Number one, is the rest thing like a true thing? Is Kawhi playing only 60 games and then appearing like the best basketball player on the planet, while the cumulative effect of playing like seasons with over 100 games for the Warriors for 5 straight seasons, is that and then getting decimated with injuries with KD and Clay? Mike, is the rest thing real or fake?
The rest thing is stupid. Now,
okay, beautiful.
Okay. Welcome back. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Here's the thing. The best argument I heard about this recently, I forget where I heard it from, is I think my wife found something on MSNBC. The argument is that the reason that everyone is specializing now is that certain muscles that should be worked out as kids are not getting worked out because they're just doing the same sport over and over again.
Here we go.
So because of that, now we extend it. Now, why did Nolan Ryan throw 6 million complete games and 1 million no-hitters and no one can pitch past the 6th inning in Major League Baseball? I think that is what has happened. On the flip side, with the pros, yes, Gus, should you only play 60 games if you're going to become Kawhi Leonard and make 5 million points and 1 million jumpers and game-winning, series-winning, corner fadeaway threes, Game 7 against the Sixers? Yes, but that is not the norm. So listen, I still like the guys that play 82 games, the LeBrons of the world, the Jordans of the world, but Kawhi Leonard is as clutch a player as we've seen in quite a long time, and he is bigger than Curry. He does more things defensively and rebounds better than Curry, and honestly, it's his mid-range game, which coincidentally, partner, really sunk the Bucks. That was the issue.
That was the issue as far against the Bucks. They kind of didn't have any mid-range defense. Nope. They defended the arch well, and of course they defended at the rim well with Giannis and with Lopez. Mike, just very quickly, I wanted to kick in a little bit to your Action Network brain. The Triple Crown lost a little steam with the Ponies. Was there something that you kind of keyed into with the horse racing down at Pimlico or anything else? Was there something that you that you felt like you want to brag about, or something that you had right as far as the Triple Crown goes with the horse racing?
Yeah, we said in college. Remember we used to talk in college, and I had this ridiculous theory that everybody laughed about. I don't think you ever laughed at it because
it wasn't ridiculous. No,
the name matters. I remember saying there was a linebacker from Michigan at the time named Sam Sword. Is there any doubt that he's going to be a quality linebacker? Sam Sword, middle linebacker. So I go by the names when I make my selections, but I will say this. When it rains, there's always upsets in the slop. Okay, we used to learn about you and I learned from a horse guru growing up. That matters. True. And I always like the horses that come from behind, especially in the Belmont. And listen, I know all you horse racing fanatics can tell me you got to disqualify the horse in the Derby. Folks, Gus and I raced in college. I got spiked worse than these horses bumped each other on the DQ. So that's my last statement on horse racing. It's all I got to say. I'm always going to take the long shots. I like to come from behind people. And in the slop, you like the upsets.
Listen, I have scars to prove that I've gotten beat up worse than that on the race course from spikes. I'm with you on that. And listen, all the while, our sport continues to hold some highlights during the offseason. Mike, I think we need to talk some coaching changes. I got a couple for you here. So Michigan followed like the NBA Jam coaching model and offered and hired former Fab Fiber, Juwan Howard, for its suddenly open head coaching spot. So Coach Beilein heads off to the Cavs in the NBA, and that brings Michigan all the way back. And they had like a trip to the national title game. They had a player of the year in Trey Burke. They have multiple NBA first-round picks due to excellent player development inside the Michigan program with excellent Michigan coaching. So, Mike, where does this leave Michigan? And how do you think Juwan Howard is going to do as head coach for Michigan as a former Fab Fiber? To be honest, not a legacy like the school has previously embraced.
I think whenever you have an X and O coach, a brilliant X and O coach like John Beilein,
brilliant, yes.
Don't mess around bringing in another X and O coach.
Good point.
The styles never work. When you have a coach who's a player's coach, you then go to the X and O guy. Right. And when you have the X and O guy, you're making a big culture shift. They lost Beilein, did a phenomenal job for them. Great coach, fantastic. And we learned, Gus, that his interview with Detroit was not innocent. That was a serious consideration when he did that. And we know that now looking back on it, hindsight 2020.
Right.
But I like the move. I think it's the right move. I think at some point, Howard, and I don't know his X's and O's, but he's coming in with a lot of passion. The Fab Five, I'm going to love this, okay? But I think that is the right move to bring in a guy like Howard to follow Beilein. I don't think Luke Yaklich would do a great job if he was I just don't think it works. I think you have to change styles because if you bring in the X and O guy, he'll never be as good as Beilein. Never. He will never be. Correct. And they will continue to compare to him, and that's what will happen. So why don't you bring in the Pied Piper? Bring in Howard. Bring him. You'll keep the momentum from Beilein going and see how he does.
Listen, and that's follow we mentioned the NBA Jam draft model, as far as Patrick Ewing, Penny Hardaway down at Memphis. We can even reference Chris Mullen down at St. John's, even though he has moved on to, bigger and slightly better things. And Mike Anderson is there now. So I think that this just kind of follows the model. And if we've seen the recruiting class that Penny has kind of commandeered down at Memphis, I mean, if Juwan Howard can even replicate that, I don't know, even in like 35% mode, I think Michigan would be ecstatic. So if we just take a quick look at the Cavs, they're hoping that Beilein can replicate the success of maybe like Brad Stevens of the Celtics, and even to a lesser extent of like Quinn Snyder of the Jazz, right? Or maybe Billy Donovan of like OKC. And if you think about it for a quick second, this might be a brilliant move. We've seen a number of times where first-time NBA coaches just fall flat and get stale. But those that have real sustainable success, they hit the restart button with their rosters, and they decide to do that with the coaching staff as well. And I feel like the Cavs are a special case. They're in the biggest rebuild mode of any NBA team ever, minus LeBron. They have a very special case. So why not grab one of the finest, most unique basketball minds in the game, allow him to teach and coach the limited roster that exists, and create a similar culture that he had going on in Michigan? Where at Michigan, it was like, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to win. We're going to compete for a Big Ten title. We're going to get to a championship game. We're going to have player of the year type players on our roster. We matter. And let's figure out a way to win minus the recruits that are at the highest level in one of the toughest leagues to navigate in college hoops. So I think the hire for the Cavs is actually like kind of smart. And I think Beilein is actually going to have an effect on the change in culture there. What do you think about Beilein like as an NBA coach, like moving forward, not just for the Cavs, but just in general on the overall construct?
I think anybody who can do X and O's with the offensive schemes that he can is going to be fantastic. I think the players are going to relate to him. I think he's a professional, and don't undersell that. You have to be a professional. They want a company man. That's what Brad Stevens is. Quinn Snyder has been that in Utah. I think he looks the part is what I'm saying. And his offensive mind is just as good as anyone else in professional basketball. I like the hire. I really do.
I think it's a brilliant hire. I think it's a brilliant hire in this particular time frame as well. I don't think that there's any expectation that comes along with the hire as well. And I think the lack of expectation will yield surprise. I think it will yield surprise results. And I think that at some point, if they have sustainability with the hire, I think the Cavs are going to be really rewarded with Beeline sitting in the front seat as their coaching leader in the coaching staff. Listen, Mike, let's get to the good stuff. What do you think? Like, this is going to bring us to like one of our favorite days of the year, the NBA draft. And in place of a traditional like draft rundown, we're going to pepper Mike with like a starting five of questions here. Mike, you ready for the starting five? We're going to give you like 5 elements that we think might unfold that might be worth paying attention to during the draft process. And of course, I'll happily jump in and tell you if you're right or wrong on either front. So, Mike, you ready for your starting five for the NBA draft that's coming this week?
I'm totally ready. Fire away.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I got a lot to say.
All right,
got a lot to say.
All right, listen, let's just start where you talked about Mike Gribanoff like calling you crazy or insane or whatever terminology you might use. By the way, he was really complimentary otherwise. So the fact that he like called you out on this was great. You have stated your flavor on the podcast multiple times, and for those that don't remember, please remind them of Ja versus Zion. We've been lucky enough to have, Mike G from Stepien. We had Coach B and Cardi from ESPN. We had Eric Fawcett from NBA Canada. And guess what? They're all on the other side of you as far as this goes. So, Mike, stand your ground. What makes Ja so special in your basketball eyes, and why is it a legit argument why you're going to take Zion or Ja?
First of all, people have to understand something. When you're going to make predictions, don't go with the sheep, okay? Everyone's telling me that this is a really weak draft. Oh, it's a weak draft. Based on what? Ethan Strauss from The Athletic, guy I like to follow on Twitter, excellent job. He goes in 2011 after pick 10, Clay, Kawhi, Jimmy Butler, and Vucevic were selected. So no one knows anything. What this means is the five.
That's a great point.
The 5-star players. That's what they mean. And we'll get to Darius Garland, by the way. Everybody loves Darius Garland.
Right.
Half the people haven't seen him play. Haven't seen the guy play, but we know. Here's my point. You have to take Zion number 1 if you're the Pelicans. But the reasons are not basketball reasons. They are the reasons on the Twitter video we saw, Gus, where New Orleans is selling out their season tickets. There's a financial aspect to this. We have people, really close friends. We've learned about the business part. There's a guy who runs the player side, and there's a guy who runs the business side.
So
and
true.
They're both called presidents. Okay? That's what it is. Operation president, this and that. Zion Williamson is going to have a sustained, successful NBA career.
Sure.
I do not think he is Kawhi Leonard. I don't think they're clearing out for Zion in 6 years to win a championship. But I don't know, Gus, if that needs to happen to justify him being the first pick. Right. But I am telling you this. You know me longer than anyone. I liked Durant over Greg Oden.
You did.
I did not like Lonzo Ball, hashtag swipe of the fox. Okay.
I mean, that's a gimme right there.
And I have been right about a lot of these things. Now, listen, I've learned. We argued about Jonathan Isaac. On this one, I'll take the L, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
I don't think Jonathan Isaac has dominated the NBA statistically.
No.
However, he's a starter on the Orlando Magic.
Right.
And if my son is going to be a starter on the Orlando Magic, then I would happily ask him to go declare. So when I look at things, I look at them through the prism of what do I think will happen in their career. Jakob Poeltl sat on the bench in Toronto. Then he goes and starts or comes off the bench and plays big man San Antonio.
Right.
I just think he could have gotten to the San Antonio portion by staying a year. Who knows? Here's my point. Ja Morant is a first-team All-NBA player. We're going to criticize Ja Morant because he's not big enough? Really? Well, why are we doing that? Because Zion is 285. When have we ever criticized players for not being thick enough as guard? When has that happened? Never. They'll gain weight in the NBA. It's the one thing you can do. You'll gain weight, you'll get stronger. But for some reason, because Zion is one of the best athletes we've ever seen in our life, Ja's too thin. His size. They're called weight rooms, guys. They're called weight rooms. The kid shoots over 50%. Shoots over 35% from three, and led the country in assists at Murray State. Murray State. Do you think a guy who then goes to the NBA is not going to be able to put up big assist numbers with the best athletes in the world? I would take Ja. I think Zion is a fine selection. I would take Ja. To me, he's a first-team All-NBA player. Zion Williamson is not. He is never going to be first-team All-NBA. That's my opinion. Don't tell me about second jumps, Mike Ribanoff. I don't care about I don't care about that. Harold Miner was a great athlete. He's an undersized forward or a big, not great shooting guard. But he's a phenomenal athlete. And you know what he sells, Gus? Tickets. And that's what it means. But I'm telling you this, Ja Morant, as we saw him in college, clear out, give me the ball, I'll score it. That's what he's going to do in the NBA. You ain't doing that with Zion in the NBA. But is that what you need to do to justify the pick? No. You know what you need? Cashing them checks, like Jalen Rose says.
I love that you referenced Jalen there. That was beautiful. Here are my two thoughts on this. Number one, I think Zion is going to be a fine NBA player. I think he's going to be an unbelievable, like you said, sustained NBA career. He's going to be an NBA starter for a number of years. I kind of agree with you, and I think Eric Fawcett agreed with you a tiny bit on this as well.
Oh, they do. They don't want to admit it, but they do.
No, Eric was with you a little bit. Like, maybe he's not going to be that first-team All-NBA guy. And I will tell you this about Ja. Ja has a unique skill set that not many have had coming into the NBA draft. We can look at Westbrook. We can look at Fox. We can look at Lonzo. Whatever other lead guard you want to look at. But his calculus, his equation, his recipe of explosiveness, shooting from the outside, creating for others, craft around the rim. I know his finishing numbers aren't exactly what you want them to be, and we talked about a little bit this with the synergy numbers on previous podcasts, that maybe around the rim he doesn't finish as efficiently as you'd like to. But I'll tell you right now, the fact that he's going to dish the ball to NBA players, whether it be NBA bigs in the inside that can throw for a dunk or kick it out to NBA wings that are going to sink a three, those assist numbers aren't going to go anywhere. And I think Ja's athletic ability with his quickness, and if he can just create a little bit of that floater game and that mid-range game, I think that's where he's really going to shine, and that's where you might develop him into, like you said, that first-team All-NBA-ish type player. So if that part develops, I'm on board with him being like one of the best players in the NBA. So that's where I'm at with that. Mike, you mentioned Garland, right? Is this Garland thing real? Would the Knicks really burn another lottery pick on a lead guard? They already burned Frank Ntilikina. They already acquired Dennis Smith.
How'd that work out, by the way? How'd Frank Ntilikina work out over? Come on.
Right? It seems foolish, right? I mean, for the Knicks, it's got to be RJ or bust, right? So, Mike, dual question here, and go where you will with both of these. Where are you at with Garland? And then what do you think the Knicks should do at the 3 spot? Do you think they're even entertained going anywhere else besides RJ?
Darius Garland, I can't give you a definitive opinion one way or another.
Can't get there, right?
He only played a few. I have no idea. No idea. And anyone who tells you this is wrong. If you want to tell me that he's been impressive in workouts, I'm fine with that, because you can actually see those. There are players who've been impressive in workouts. Donovan Mitchell, who's gone on to absolutely dominate after being okay, good but not great in college. So I have no idea. I think people are trying to force a square peg in a round hole. I will tell you, partner, and I've said this, you look at the top 5 picks, go back as long as you want, at least 2 of them are busting. Markelle Fultz, how's he doing? How's Markelle? How you doing, Markelle? Can't shoot free throws, yet he's the number 1 pick. Okay, we're going to really
look at the top 8 of that draft. The top 8 of that draft, nobody's really that impressive.
Right. Lonzo Ball, we talked about. You know, his dad comes out saying, if you say things definitively, like, people will listen to you. Okay, I don't know if Darius Garland's good or not. The idea that R.J. Barrett is not going to flourish is the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my life. Do we remember that Zion Williamson was injured for most of the year? He had games and he was out, and then the sneaker and this. Who carried the team? Duke basketball. R.J. Barrett. I don't know where this hate of R.J. Barrett has come from. Does he? I think it's really this simple, Gus. He doesn't dunk like Zion.
He averaged over 25 points a game on over 48% shooting during that session when Zion was out. He played so efficiently, it was ridiculous.
Right. Is his burst as good as Zion? No. Okay. But the kid is a great all-around player. Right. He's naturally right-handed. We heard it with Stephen A., yet he shoots with his left. I mean, I don't know the hesitancy with a player who basically led Duke. Zion didn't lead Duke. Zion had moments of dominance and should have been the player of the year. There's no argument.
Sure.
Gus, R.J. Barrett's really good. Do I think he's going to be a first-team All-NBA player? I don't know. Probably not.
Probably not.
But R.J. Barrett is a solid start. Folks, if you're excited about Kevin Knox with the Knicks, based on what? Why are you not excited about R.J. Barrett being your point guard? What? I don't know where the hate of R.J. Barrett has come from. I love the guy. I think he's a solid building block.
Superior comparison with Knox. Look, if you're going to get like fired up about Knox and you're not going to get fired about R.J. Barrett, that's a great place to start with. And by the way, if you're the Knicks, why not pair those two guys together? And look, if you're also like, what are you going to do? Are you going to put Garland with like Dennis Smith and Moutier? And Frankie Ntilikina? No, you're not going to do that. You're obviously going to take the wing to kind of pair up and pair with Knox. Knox can play the 4. RJ can play the 3 or the 2 for that reason. And you put whoever's going to like come through, I don't know, like the pasta. I'm trying to think of like what you run the pasta through to get like the water out.
The colander?
The colander. Whoever's going to come out of the colander, Dennis Smith, Moutier, or Frank Ntilikina, then you're good.
You just named the R.J. Barrett colander. You just named the podcast. Sure. Gus, 22 points, 7.6 rebounds, 4.3 assists, and a steal a game at Duke. When has that ever been more underrated? I don't.
Or more criticized. More criticized.
On his 2-pointers, 53%. I don't know what the problem is with RJ. I don't know where this has come from. It's almost like people realize, well, someone's got to bust, and I really like Zion, so why don't I pick on Barrett? I don't know where this has come from. Why would you take Darius Garland, who played, 2 games, whatever the heck it was, over R.J. Barrett, who basically was the focal point at Duke? I don't understand what people haphazardly disregard college production and then disregard athleticism. I don't know what the problem is. I don't. Well, Ja Morant doesn't. Zion dunks. Forget Ja's production. R.J. Barrett led Duke, but I like Garland. Did you see him at the the workout? What?
Look, I love the logic there. Why are we ignoring R.J. Barrett's like insane production they had at Duke? I mean, fine, he didn't shoot well from 3 or create or had like a high turnover ratio. I'm with you on all that. We get that. We get that part as a podcast. We understand that.
I think like he'll be fine. I don't have any concerns about R.J. Barrett. I don't worry about the bust with him, is what I'm saying.
Okay, very good. So we know where you're at with that. All right, Mike. Loyal podcast listeners, remember your love for Kentucky's PJ Washington. He kind of fits the current NBA construct. Slightly older, successful wing, and maybe one of those players that might get a little bit undervalued. 2-part question here. Why is he still one of your favorites as a late lottery guy? And give us another either late lottery guy or first round selection that you feel like might be undervalued in this particular draft that people are going to be like, oh yeah, why didn't somebody pick that guy earlier? So give us your, remind us of your stance on PJ Washington, and then give the listeners another little taste of like, who's one other guy that you're like, you know what, this guy's going to blow up too, and you're going to look at him and picked in the 20s or the late lottery and be like, why didn't he go earlier?
The PJ Washington part, to me, the fact that he's like dropping to 13 or 14 is laughable.
Crazy.
If you didn't just say the Colander line, it would be PJ Washington, LOL. That would be. This is a guy who went to Kentucky. He was a 5-star. And 5 stars, guys. I know you like those 5 stars, right?
I knew you'd get there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So he went there. He went to Kentucky. He was okay his first year. It was solid. But what I saw, Gus, is the improvement. I saw a guy who improved and became a better ball handler and a better 3-point shooter and a big guy inside.
Better in the post with that little jump hook.
With the jump hook. That's what I love. He's coming from a big time program. Calipari works. He does a great job with the pros. We know that Devin Booker. Hello. Yep. Okay. I mean, gosh, Devin Booker almost cost me losing my HQ Sports first trivia win there on who made the most consecutive 3-pointers. But of course, Gus. Okay, because we know it's Craig Hodges. I didn't go for Devin Booker, but that's. Right. That's why I love PJ Washington. I think he's a steal. If he drops outside of 10, it's larceny. It's NBA draft larceny. I think the world of the guy, and I think he's done a tremendous job. I think he's a plug and play. I think he's going to be a very long, successful guy in the NBA. And I don't know why. He's being drafted right now, according to SI.com. I ended up printing out the SI.com stuff here. Tyler Hero is going right next to him. I mean, there's no compare. Tyler Hero had a terrible combine, by the way. So I don't get it. I like seeing players like Romeo Langford drop. I think that's the right move for a guy who didn't produce. But PJ Washington, to me, is going to be a tremendous, tremendous steal. One of the guys that I still like because I like guys with roles, guys who play their role. And, you don't have to be Gus. Everyone I take in a draft is not going to be a guy who's going to score 25 points. But you did a preview on him, and we put him out for the patrons on a summary there. NBA draft summary. You did a great job. Gus, Matisse Thybulle is going to be a successful NBA player. You had some fantastic comps for him. He has a role, right? And that's my issue with Zion. Where are you going to play him? You're going to pump positionless basketball, Gus, but we can pump that. And then all of a sudden, when the Bucks needed a basket, what happened to all of them? Well, let's get it to Giannis, okay? And when the Raptors needed a basket, let's get it to, it does go back to positions. And then when you have a dominant center like a Shaq, right, you realize, that really helps a lot because all of a sudden Bob Horry can make open threes, but Bob Horry's not going one-on-one at the end of the game. I think Matisse Thybulle is a fantastic 5th starter for a really good team.
There's your guy.
The steals, the blocks, everything he did in Washington. He's caffeinated. I think Thybulle is a great guy. He has a role, defensive stopper, 5th guy. I'd love to see him go to the Lakers. They don't need him to score. They just need him to sort of hang around and do what they kind of wanted Brandon Ingram to do, but Brandon Ingram score a little bit more. That's my guy, my Lake guy. My heart's in that with Washington. Right now, SI.com, Jeremy Wu's got him going 25th to Portland. That would be great. I like Matisse Thybulle.
Okay, so there you go, listeners. You have Mike's rationale for PJ Washington, and you also have a later first round pick that might be undervalued in Matisse Thybulle. By the way, we love that he's so artistic with his name. Here are my 2 thoughts on PJ Washington and my 2 thoughts on Matisse Thybulle. Number 1, I'm totally with you. I'm on the PJ Washington bandwagon. I think he's totally getting undervalued. He should go somewhere within the top 10. So I'm totally on board with you there. Here's the other part that I think it also fits the current NBA construct that we mentioned earlier, and we talked about this a little bit with Eric Fawcett when we talked to him earlier in the podcast. If you take a look at the current NBA, landscape, and we look at the Final Four, the players that are making the difference are the players that have been in college a couple of years and have some experience and then come in and can continue that dominance. Now, I'm not saying PJ Washington was the best player in college basketball. I'm not saying PJ Washington was the best player on his own team. That's up for debate. You can argue that all you want on other podcasts. What I am saying is he came back for a sophomore year and showed tremendous improvement. The fact that he came back for a sophomore year and showed that improvement and worked on his game and got into the lab and got better at all the things that Mike just laid out for you, whether it be the post-up game or his 3-point shot. That's the way that you're going to find success. So I think that fits that mold, whether it be a Dame Lillard, or a Kawhi Leonard, or if we're going to look at the Bucks, if we're going to look at Middleton, where he stayed at Texas A&M for a long time. Whatever comp you're going to go with there, PJ Washington came back for that extra year and showed unbelievable improvement in that year, and I think that fits how the NBA is working and how a wing in the NBA might be successful. And then you mentioned Thybulle. Listen, defense is going to be valued at an unbelievable level the next couple of years within the NBA because of the success and the rule changes due to offensive play. Like the game is just geared towards more points being scored. So if you can create an advantage at some position on the floor defensively, then guess what? A coach is going to be smart enough to identify that and then capitalize on that. And you know who's going to help him do that? It's going to be a player like Thibault. It's going to be a player like Robertson from OKC. It's going to be a player that can neutralize a player on the other end and then actually do one or two things on the offensive end. So I'm totally with you as far as those guys go. All right, Mike, give the listeners a little taste here. Play NBA GM for the listeners. Okay, give us what you think here. Both the Hawks and the Celtics, the Hawks thanks to the trade with the Nets, own 3 first-round picks. Mike, do you value multiple first-round selections in the NBA draft, or would you rather have a singular top 3 pick? So I guess, would you rather be the Pelicans with a top pick overall and then another pick later on, or would you rather be the Hawks with 3 shots to grab value and get it right? Where's your head at?
Well, knowing me as you do, partner, I always like to go for the home run. Okay. I think this is a deep draft. I think it's deeper than people realize. I don't think there's a huge difference between 4 and 10. You know what I mean? Like, so if I targeted Kobe White, and I love Kobe White, I have hopped on the train that you have steered the entire year.
Good man.
And I thought I could get him in pick 7, 8. I trade down. So I'm a huge trade down guy in this particular draft. So I would rather have the top 3 pick, especially for Ja and people like that. But if I had that, I don't need multiple picks. I'd rather get my guy. I think it's rare in any draft that you're going to find 2 or 3 starters. I think that's a tough one. So just off the top of my head here, I love a guy like Bruno Fernando. I don't see what was the name of the center Toronto used to have, the Vasilinas. Whatever.
Continue.
That guy. Okay, I don't see why Bruno can't be like him. So if I had a pick, like, I don't think I'm mortgaging my future on Jarrett Culver. I'm not. I'm not sure that Jarrett Culver showed me enough that he can dominate. And the problem is, folks, whenever you watch these shows for the NBA draft, every guy that goes in the top 15, they're only going to say positives about. Every pick in the top 15, great. They're going to take Culver's long. I mean, just tremendous job this year. That's great, guys. Everyone who's drafted in the top 15 obviously is a really good player. But do I think that's going to translate to the NBA? So in this particular draft, to answer your question, I'd rather be a top pick guy. And if I had another pick, I don't want multiple picks. I'd rather package, trade down, and get the guy that I want. I don't want to pick at 18 and 22. I'd rather grab Fernando at 30 and pick up another pick next year.
Got it. Valanciunas is the guy that you're thinking of from Toronto. Very good.
Yeah,
okay.
He can be
took me a little while to get there. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, I can't pronounce his name, but it's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Very good. All right. So, final starting 5 question. You've done very well with the starting 5 question. Mike, if you're the Pelicans and you're holding the 2 top 5 picks, right? Number 1, where are you going to go with those 2 players? Who do you think they might take in that second part? I mean, obviously the Lakers are picking for the Pels there. So if you're rebuilding your team after you trade AD, it seems like they're going to lean Zion. So who's the ancillary, who's the complementary pick that you would take afterwards? Like, what would your mindset be as a GM? Or would you look to trade that? Like, where are you looking to go there? Is there a player that you really like inside the top 5 after you grab Zion?
I like players in roles. So listen, if RJ Barrett somehow drops, that's an auto pick for me. I love DeAndre Hunter. I feel though that those type of guys you can get a little easier. I love DeAndre Hunter. He's wonderful. Did a great job, Virginia National Champions. I don't feel comfortable spending the 4th overall pick on DeAndre Hunter. While he
that right there is perfect. Yes.
While he may be the 4th best player in this draft, I don't know if
he might be.
I don't think he's worthy of that. I would much rather take Kobe White at 8. That sort of thing. I would much rather, grab players later in the draft than that. So if I'm the Pelicans, if RJ Barrett drops, I think that's an absolute auto pick for me. If not, I would like to trade down. I would take a Kobe White. I would also take PJ Washington. I think PJ Washington at pick 10 to 13 is light years better than DeAndre Hunter at 4 and 8. Even though DeAndre Hunter could be a better player, I just think there's not that big a difference. So in this draft, I'm a huge trade down guy. But if Barrett drops, that's an auto click.
Okay, so the discrepancy between Hunter and PJ Washington is minimal for you as far as an NBA draft. And look, here's what I would say too. If you are the Pelicans, I think if you're gonna like sell the Zion train and sell season tickets that way and get people in this get fannies in the seats, as you like to say, then I think that you need to pick a player that's going to be complementary to Zion. Whether that be your point guard, maybe that's where Garland goes. Maybe that's where Kobe White goes, who's going to play like the alley-oop thrower to the alley-oop catcher. I would totally understand that part. So maybe they go a little point guard there as opposed to complementary wing like you mentioned with either PJ Washington or DeAndre Hunter. I totally get that part. All right, Mike, a couple of quick things here. Number one, let's just end on the college game. Are there now that everybody's declared for the NBA draft and everybody's a number of the transfers are out in the open now. Give the listeners maybe 2, maybe 3 teams that have your attention for next season at this moment for one reason or another that they don't have to necessarily win the national championship, but teams that you're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of intrigued, I'm kind of invested, I'm interested in this team moving forward for the next season.
Well, off the top of my head, I think very quickly, I think it's storylines for me.
Yeah.
With Duke, folks, if they don't make a Final Four again, there's going to be whispers about Krzyzewski, and there's going to be screaming on this podcast. Gus, you can't keep bringing in top recruiting classes and not get to a Final Four. Calipari got there several times. His issue is people get on about not winning a national title, which is stupid, by the way. Totally so right off the bat, talk to me, Coach K. Okay, we got all the players. We got Vernon Carey, got Wendell Moore, got Matthew Hurt, Cassius Stanley. When are we going to get to a Final Four? So that's a storyline. Right. This year, Gus, we nailed the Tony Bennett Redemption Tour. I just wish we had the guts to pick them as the champion all year long. We would have. I know. We could have actually been national. Virginia. Well, both of us. And we talked about it, but I mean, we were right on the money. This year's going to be the Bill Self Redemption Tour. Okay, after what he's done, and they got knocked off the perch. They got Devin Dotson. They got Abaji. Azubuike's coming back. Marcus Garrett. Lightfoot, McCormick. I mean, they got a good side, and they got a good group coming in. Isaiah Moss is going. So that one I think is going to be interesting also. Of course, Virginia defending, but I think he got over the hump, and whatever he does, he does. Listen, the one that I'm going to throw out, and they're going to rope me back in, partner, again. And here we go again.
Here it is.
2 years ago, I pounded them against Gonzaga, and they burned me. Last year, I jumped off the bandwagon. They got a little frisky on me. Folks, St. Mary's has got a lot coming back. Your guy, Jordan Ford, Fitz, Krebs, everyone. So here we go again. And because Gonzaga will be led by my favorite, Killian Tilly, I can already see the debate coming again. So really quickly, off the top of my head, I do think St. Mary's, Gus, is a team to watch for me. And like Charlie Brown with the football, here we go again. St. Mary's -1 at Gonzaga. Gonzaga wins by 10. Here it comes.
Listeners, what else do you want for an answer in June for college basketball? This is amazing. Wonderful job, Mike Randle. All right, just a couple of teams that I'm paying attention to, and again, this is very storyline based for me as well. I think you have to pay attention. If you're not paying attention to the Big East and you're not paying attention to Xavier, with all the players they decide to have come back, they Steele has done a great job to give those guys the freedom to say, hey, I'd like you to go explore your options as potential professional basketball players. And then I am going to keep the door open for every single one of you to return. And guess what? Every single one of them did. They all returned. So I think if you're not paying attention to the Big East and Xavier, I think that's silly. So I think that's a part to pay attention to. And I think storyline-wise, if you're not just keeping your eyes on the Big East and you're not paying attention to Marquette, Marcus Howard is going to put up bananas numbers. The numbers are going to be equal to or greater than they were last year, and the numbers that he put up last year were absolutely insane. Is he going to put up Ja Morant or Trae Young type numbers with the assist numbers and the shooting numbers? Maybe not, but you know what? It's going to be fun as heck to watch him light up the Big East week after week after week, and to see what kind of solutions coaches come up with to try to solve what's going to be the Marcus Howard problem. So those are the two teams in the Big East that I'd like to pay attention to. And then, look, I'm just going to tell you right now, I think North Carolina is going to be really interesting. I think Cole Anthony is going to be like what Kobe White was, but maybe a little bit more efficient and a little quicker. How's that? Is that scary enough for everybody out there in ACC land?
That's a good one, Gus, because they kind of disappointed a little bit. That kind of went under the radar. You know, we both love Carolina. They kind of fizzled out. Cam Johnson got hurt. They self-destructed at the end at home against Virginia. That's a good one. That's a really nice storyline. Like, hey, Roy, you know, like last year was supposed to be a year for you, and it kind of disappointed. What do you got? Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I think that's going to be. We might end up talking about them being like, oh yeah, Roy still got it, and like Anthony's really awesome. So those are my three teams: Xavier, of course, Marquette with Howard, and then North Carolina in the ACC. Hey, really quickly, let's end it on a kind note. Hey, happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Hope everybody enjoyed your Father's Day weekend. Mike, you have an item that like captured this Father's Day or a past Father's Day for you? Was there something that like really stood out that you're like, oh man, like this is real, this Father's thing?
Father's Day was great. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there.
Yes,
Gus and I times two. And yes, my daughter, as I told you, your daughter is the second coming of Diana Taurasi. My daughter, not so much. So in the first game, she started because she looks good in warmups, ran down the sideline the entire game, just never engaged. Maverick engaged, right, from Top Gun. Sure. And so on Father's Day after brunch, and I mean, no one's a bigger fan of brunch than me, right. We go to an indoor court with my entire family, my wife, my son, and we were in there for like an hour and a half. And I said, honey, you don't have to play basketball. I'm not one of these psycho parents that says you have to play. I have no choice. Well, you have Screen the Screener podcast. She says, yeah, I know that. I said, but that doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I go, but if you're going to play, like you can't run down the sideline. So we worked on defense. We worked on pressing the ball. Comes out in her game on Monday, Gus, first half, 6 steals, 4 fouls. She was a human press as soon as the ball got over half court, much like her father.
She was Matisse Thybulle.
She cannot shoot and she cannot dribble, but she can. When you come over half court, she sprints at you full speed. The coach looked at me at one point and goes, what the heck did you do to her? This is crazy. I go, yeah, we worked on some stuff. So she's very happy. That was my Father's Day. Couldn't be prouder of her. Love the steals. Don't need the shots. We don't care about that. She is my Matisse Thybulle.
That's fantastic. Just very quickly on my end, we had, even though my daughter plays a lot of hoops, we tried softball for the first time this season, and which was hilarious because she's athletic and like, chuck it and catch it. So the coaches are like really kind of like, all right, let's just throw this girl at shortstop and first. Like that's where we're going to put the person that can catch and chuck. So where did she play the last playoff game? Yeah, they put her behind the plate with all the gear on. They let her catch.
Benito Santiago, right?
So which was crazy because we have been to every softball game this season, and we have never seen anybody been thrown out stealing. We can steal in third grade softball now. And what does my daughter do? She nails somebody at third base stealing. Oh, that's like first time catching. I was like, did that just happen? Like by a couple of steps. So yeah, so that was kind of exciting. So my kid can catch and like nail somebody stealing at third. That was awesome.
Gus, we'll trade. You can teach my daughter how to shoot, okay? And I can teach your daughter how to trash talk if you want, because I did tell my daughter you're taking the cookies, and when she throws people out of third, I teach her how to say, "Where are you going?"
Where are you going?
That's my contribution to your daughter. Probably the nicest girl in the world does trash talk. Here comes Uncle Mike coming over. Where are you going? Lady.
She would never say such a thing. So listen, if you're digging on the pod and what's infiltrated your ears, please give the pod a follow on Twitter at SCS Podcast. Efficiency of Keystrokes, of course. Give Mike a follow at Randle Rant. He is intelligent, insightful, and entertaining all in one nice, tidy little package. Please don't forget to give the college basketball riff like a little something that everybody else can discover. Share it. Share the S with some people, whether it be by word of mouth or whatnot. And you know what? Here at Screen the Screener, we maraud for ears. So go grassroots. Share via voice. Tell a friend. Leave a kind review. Kindness is always cool. We appreciate it here on the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast. Mike, anything else for the listeners out there?
Listen, they're not going to let like RJ Barrett in the green room tomorrow night, right? Because, I mean, he's not good. He's persona non grata. I don't think they'll even let him in. Tyler Hero can go in, though, because Cal will have a whole Kentucky section. R.J. Barrett, persona non grata. Is he going to be a first-round pick? Maybe he won't be a first-round pick. I don't know what happened to R.J. Barrett.
Can't wait to watch the thing. Listeners, we'll catch up with you before you know it. Hopefully way before you know it. And please enjoy the NBA draft. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the first weekend of summer. And please enjoy the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. Spend some time outside. Cheers. Cilantro. Grazie, Lazia. Arigato, everybody.
I'm addicted to the appetite. It's a seat in the van.